Hi guys, I am Sabrina from The Power Within Us, and we are here today at a very special guest. Well, we are at his place actually, Richard Rodds, and we are very excited to have a chat with him and interview him and know a little bit more about himself. Hi Richard.
Hi Sabrina. Hello everyone who's watching.
Well, thank you so much for inviting us to your home. And I just really wanted to get right into it and ask you, how did your spiritual journey start? How did you get involved with such deep, intense, profound matters of life?
Well, I guess, like many of us, I had feelings when I was in my teen years, and one of the things that was different about me, I think, from other people, was that I would go off and seek aloneness a lot of the time. So even when I was at school, and I went to a private school with beautiful grounds, and so I would go off and, kind of in secret as much as possible, and just be with the trees, or be with nature, or be under the sky. And I didn't really know why, but that was because I was looking inwardly at some level for this inner space. And then I guess later, when I came to my 20s, then things became more crystallized in me, and one of the things that happened was that I started experiencing energies moving through my body. And it was because a book came into my hands by a teacher called Chia, and in the book it said, there was described this energy inside the body, and these meridians and all this stuff, and it described this orbit of energy through the body, and that if you put the tongue to the roof of your mouth, then it was like a switch, electric switch, and it would turn the energy between these two currents, one up the spine and one down the front, and then the tongue on the roof of the mouth was like the switch, the bridge, the circuit. Could call it the microcosmic orbit. Anyway, so I was looking at this book that a friend had given me, and I was quite interested, and I was reading this, and looking at the diagrams, and I said, of course, I thought, I'll give this a try. So I closed my eyes and I put the tongue to the roof of my mouth, and within a couple of minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, I had kind of explosions going off inside my body. I had a real kind of explosion took place in my head with this energy, and then I felt the orbit running round. I felt exactly the thing in the book, but very strongly. And ever since that experience, the energy didn't stop. But before that, nothing. After that, I could feel energy through my body. I could feel it blocked. I could feel it in my feet. I could feel this flow of chi, or prana, whatever you call it. And so I was looking for people who could understand. And it seemed like not many people understood. I didn't meet many people who also felt it. And I feel it, ever since. I feel it now, and the mind leads it as well. So where the mind goes, the energy goes. And anyway, I found a yoga teacher in Scotland, and she understood. And she guided me and reassured me. And I said, well, what am I going to do? What do I do with this? And she said, well, why don't you go and see the guy that wrote the book?
That's a very good idea.
I hadn't thought of that. So I looked, and he was teaching in America and Thailand, and I said, okay, well, I'll go on a trip. So I went to, I think the first time I went was to America, that was it, yeah. And I went to study with Chia, and he was he's a master Chia. And I was thrown into the deep end. I was one of the youngest people on the course. It was 2 weeks in New York State.
How old are you back then?
I think I was about 21 or something.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so all the other people there were really, he drew a lot of powerful people. So he drew Tai Chi teachers and meditation experts and healers from all over the world, all in this place. About 200 of us, or 150 or something, in this beautiful location. And there was I, introduced to this world of, wow, these people that not only do they understand what I'm feeling, but they've gone way beyond, and they're mastering it and taking it into other dimensions and using it for healing and using it for meditation and astral projection or dream work, all this stuff that it was new to me. And so that was a big experience, those 2 weeks of being initiated and realizing there was this other world, and there was this group of people who I was at home in with them because they understood. And I never looked back since then, really. I had this strong intuition, and I've continued to follow it. And you know, I didn't go the normal path in my life because of that happening, those experiences. Even though that was difficult, you know, because my family is wine merchants in London, and that was what I always thought I wanted to do. As growing up as a boy, I wanted to do what my dad, my father did, and I was very interested in that, in wine, and you know, where it comes from, and tasting it, and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's an old generation business through our family. That's very successful and well respected. But in the end, I didn't go that way, and luckily my siblings went into the business and carry it on. I maintain an interest, but I became a different kind of connoisseur. You know, instead of being a connoisseur of wine, I became a connoisseur of consciousness.
Yeah, amazing.
And yeah, that's sort of how my story began, I think.
Interesting start.
Yeah.
It's a really good thing that you're able to really follow that intuition. I think a lot of people get sidetracked and they can't do that. Yeah.
No, it was always very clear to me that was you know, that was the adventure that I wanted from my life. And even though the other path was interesting and also could be very adventurous, it wasn't as adventurous because no one knew. You know, the other one set me in this completely unknown path that I was going to have to travel alone. And there were guides. You know, there always are if you're on a spiritual path. They arrive at the right time. And I've had some wonderful teachers. I've met some wonderful teachers and masters in my travels, who and some of them not even alive, you know, but who have come and become very strong influences in my spirit. So yeah, I carry all of those inside me. Yeah.
So you went around them following that intuition, and how then did you, you know, came to do what you're doing today with the gene keys? How did that all start?
Well, I started I started to practice, and one of the things I did was I started learning about the Tree of Life, the Kabbalah, and I learned lots of different things, like many of us do. We look into these different systems and things, and I always applied them, you know, outside the books. So when I learned about the Tree of Life, I read about it, I imprinted myself with it, and then I closed the books and I went, right, I want to experience it through my intuition. And then it started to come alive in my life, and I began to read it through nature and through relationships and events, and I began to experience it in my body.
Okay.
Right? So the teaching was alive. And I'd been doing like a year-long meditation on the Kabbalah, and then I woke up one morning in an altered state. This was my first big mystical experience, and that really set me on a more intense journey. And I've described this experience before in some of my talks and things. An experience of being flooded with light. You know, from the moment you wake up, you know, there it is. You're in an altered state of consciousness, a kind of realized state of consciousness where your being is just made of light, and there is no restriction in your being at all. There was just no restriction. There's just freedom of the light to travel through everywhere. You know, because previous to that, I could feel the restrictions. You know, in the energy track. You know, but then suddenly I experienced it unrestricted. You know, boundless. Boundless, you know, and funnily enough, later as it comes to, I came to learn about the gene keys, much later, one of my core gene keys is boundlessness.
Ah.
You know, and so I experienced that for 3 days and 3 nights, that limitless light. Can't explain it. And it caused a lot of confusion in me, because after I came down from those 3 days and those 3 nights, and I came back down into the normal reality. I had all these questions, and I'd seen so much in those 3 days, because there was an omniscience, there was an ability to see, to see the future, to see the past, to see the now, to see everything, in the now, but everything that hasn't happened, everything that has happened, all in the now, and so things were shown to me. That's how I could explain it. They were sort of shown to me, and they still have a bearing in me now. But yeah, it was a difficult period after that of trying to integrate, and then what do I do with this? Because I didn't have any. I had this light and this knowledge, but it wasn't really in a form, and it wasn't in a structure, and it didn't really have a language, and it was uncomfortable because I wanted to get back to it, but I didn't know how to, and I tried all kinds of things, and none of them worked. And it's sort of, it can be hard when you have those experiences afterwards.
Yeah.
But it sort of continued to lead me on, and I went into denial afterwards. I went into different phases. I learned all kinds of things. I went into a sort of messiah phase, where I just thought, okay, I'm it.
Are we all?
But I'm really it. I've had it. I've got everything. And then I came down off that trip. It wasn't that long, and I kind of realised that this one wasn't going to work. And then I went into denial, and I thought, well, that whole experience wasn't really, it was just a kind of fabrication of my imagination, and I'm going to be normal. And I tried to be normal, and that didn't work either.
Oh dear.
And so I tried things to deal with it, and that was all part of my integration of it. And I was travelling all this time around the world, and I was learning and studying different things, and then I came across this human design system. I mean, before that, I should say that I was into body work. I was very much into the body-centered therapies and stuff, and particularly the belly. And then I came across something very mental, human design system, and that really caught my attention for some reason. I was surprised because it seemed so mental, but there was some spirit behind it that I felt deeply, and so I went to study with the teacher of that, Ra Ruhu. I went to find him in New Mexico, and a very curious, extraordinary man, and I spent time with him, and he kept moving, so I kind of moved where he moved, not like a kind of guru thing, but just I wanted to know, because he had something, you could feel it. He had something, and I wanted to know what it was that he had. I was more interested in the feeling than the knowledge, because he emanated it, and I wanted to be around that, and so I spent time around that, and I was always the one in the class that never took any notes, because I just sat there bathing in the kind of, I don't know what it is, energy, it's coming off this man. It's not in what he's saying. Well, maybe it's in the vibrations, but it's not in it's not in the words, it's in the aura. And so I absorbed that, and spent time with that, and studied that system, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to set myself up. He invited me to take it to the UK, and I set myself up as a teacher and a school and all that, and I tried that. I thought, this is stable. I can do this. This is a structure. And I started to do that, and it did really well over here. And some nice kind of things occurred. Some, grace took a hand, and it became quite well known. And I became quite well known and got articles and things. But there was something about that didn't. There wasn't enough. There wasn't enough room for my boundlessness. Actually, in that system. And because I'd always meet the parameters of the system with my heart and go, it needs to be bigger, it needs to be wider, the words need to be stretched. And so I started stretching them, and stretching the concepts, and stretching the language. And they didn't like it. I mean, he didn't mind too much, Urahu, his name is. But some of the people around him didn't like it. They didn't, they didn't like me tinkering with the system and changing it and reshaping it.
Yeah.
So eventually, I kind of felt squeezed out of that system and that community, because it was a little bit cult-like. And so when I broke free from that, it was wonderful. And actually, as I broke free, a new language came in me, and I had my second big mystical experience in 2004. And it was another 3 days and 3 nights. I like threes. Anyone who knows my teachings knows I like threes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've found out about that.
So 3 days, 3 nights, and in that one, everything I'd received, everything I knew from human design, it was just expanded, and I realised there's a whole other dimension to this, and I had to get this transmission off this man, this amazing man, and I had to take it to the next level and integrate it with all kinds of other things and with my earlier vision.
Okay.
So it all began to make sense inside me in a way that I can't explain, but it just began to make sense, and it was so.
Yeah, in your inner truth, you don't have to explain, you just know.
Yeah,
right?
everything started to fit, and then a new language emerged, and this thing I called the spectrum of consciousness. And we were playing with the I Ching, the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. That's what human design is based on. So that's how I came. That's how the gene keys emerged. They emerged through this spiritual path and through absorbing these systems, and then expanding beyond them into the next level. And the visions and there weren't revisions, but the spiritual realization experiences that I'd had informed the new kind of form that became the gene keys. And people would ask me, well, what's the difference between human design and the gene keys? And my simple answer was, well, human design is based on certainty, and the gene keys is based on uncertainty.
Brilliant.
So if you like to know what you're doing, go to human design. If you like the mystery, come to gene keys. And they're very, very different, and they can't be compared, actually, at all. But, yeah, there's a lot of space in the new form. It's very flexible. And that's how I came to create gene keys.
Nice, very nice. So I wanted to ask you a little bit of a more personal question. Because obviously you had such an amazing journey and, experiences that you can't really explain to anyone unless that they have those experiences themselves. So do you believe in God, or what does God mean to you? It's a question that we like to really ask our guests, and because it's such a personal.
Yeah. I mean, it's whenever someone asks me that question, which is not that often in the West here, no one
wants to know.
No one wants to ask that question. I always think of Carl Jung answering that question, and I always think he answered it in the best way, and I would answer it in the same way as him, which is he said, I don't believe, I know. And it's the same. I don't believe, I don't need to believe, I know. And it's always extraordinary to me, living in the West, that we don't know. Most people don't know. And it's extraordinary to live in a culture where people don't know about this, that it's everywhere and everything. And sometimes I just feel, why didn't I land in India? Nowhere. Everyone knows.
Maybe that's why you didn't land in India, to help.
Exactly.
Brilliant. And in terms of religion, would you consider yourself a more, religious person, or do you have? I know some spiritual people, well, in the New Age, some of them are like, oh, you either gotta be spiritual, religious, or some people integrate everything. Or do you see even a difference between religion and spirituality?
Yeah, I see a difference. I think that spirituality is the essence that runs through all religions, and religion is the form of the structure that spirituality assumes. And I'm a synthesizer You know, that's the vision that I had. It was all, you know, it was seeing where everything's connected. You know, that's what I saw in the first big experience. I saw everything was connected. And so that's how my mind works. In my higher mind, it starts to see connections. So I integrate many different streams and lineages. You know, I am an integration of many different streams and lineages. And I guess the main ones, because I like threes, are the kind of ancient Hermetic teachings, you know, which are the teachings of alchemy and magic, not just Western but Eastern as well, Eastern Oriental alchemy. And that doesn't mean turning lead into gold, it means inner alchemy, you know, the transmutation of consciousness. And therefore Tantra and things like that, you know, which is Tibetan, Indian, all those yogic systems that, you know, very much part of my study and my learning. And then the other one is the Buddhist traditions, you know, very strong in me. You know, that stream of that transmission through the Buddha, those beautiful pure truths. Those are very much part of undercurrent in my teachings, I think. And the other one is the Christ. I wouldn't say Christian so much as the Christ is a very strong stream that comes through me. And that was picked up very clearly by some teachers who I discovered, but who had sadly I never met in the flesh. These teachings from Bulgaria, through this wonderful master called Peter Dunov, and then his disciple who became a master Ivanov, who went to France, and they brought the alchemy tradition into the Christ teaching, and it was really amazing. And it's surprising how people haven't heard of them in the West. They were a very pure stream of Christ teaching, but without the trappings of Christianity. You know, so very, very refined. So those three, and in a way those three sets of teachings are, I would say they're held in a transcendent fourth kind of way by the feminine. Because those are all quite male transmissions, and the feminine kind of holds them, you know. So by feminine I mean the spirit of grace and the divine mother, you know. So that is really where that's what moves through me the deepest. The sense of at the core of it all is love, you know, and
nice, very nice. With that in mind, another question that we always love to ask our guests is the fact, all the hoo-ha about ascension, and there is something going on in the planet right now, and what do you think? What are your beliefs around that? Do you think there is something happening right now in this era? There is, you know, this Christ consciousness raising and coming in unity?
Yeah, well, it's deep part of the Gene Keys teachings. Anyone that comes and reads the book, for example, will find that, and it's on my website. It's in the 55th Gene Key, which there are 64 Gene Keys, and it's the 55th one for some reason. And in that one describes this awakening, this process of collective awakening that we're on the cusp of. And yeah, it's in that sense the Gene Keys, and you know, it's prophetic, and it kind of makes me into a bit of a prophet. And even though I may not want to be, because when you do that, you stick your head over the top of the parapet, and you go, okay, there's something coming, and I'm going to. It's coming into the world, and I'm on the crest of the wave, and people, the rest of the world may not see it yet. So it's not such an easy sell, but it's coming, and a lot of people are feeling it. It may not be the way that people, a lot of the spiritual people envisage it, as a kind of ascension that's everything's done for us. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done inside us. That's what I see. That's what I experience the most. Is that we have to transform our inner beings, and that's a lot of work. You know, particularly when it comes to things like living in relationships. That's where I see people have the biggest challenges.
Definitely.
And so that's where I put a lot of my attention. Because if you can stay in a relationship and thrive in a relationship, then you are, as far as I'm concerned, whoever you are, you're a spiritual person.
Yeah.
You know, you have something special. And those people who can do that, truly,
yeah.
you know, with not in a way that kind of looks like they're thriving, but truly are growing. Those are people on the cusp of the change, I think, because it takes a huge inner courage to be able to do that, because a relationship is something that's constantly transforming you. So yeah, that's one of my teachings.
Definitely. Another thing, well, probably the last question that I would like to ask, and such an amazing life. I know, you know, I've seen so many of your webinars and know some of your experiences, but I would love to ask you, if you'd like to tell us, what was the most amazing experience you have had? I know you, the light and everything, but or maybe what was the darkest experience that you've had that created a true impact on yourself?
Well, I guess, you know, I described those ecstatic experiences that I had, and I've had those sporadically throughout my life. You know, so I've had these big ones that I just described to you, but then I have other ecstatic experiences that spontaneously come to me regularly. And you know, rather than saying, oh, there's one, because I don't think there really is, you know, I think maybe there's two realms. And one is in my family, actually. You know, one is being with my children and my wife, and the rhythm of family life, and the highs and the lows of family life. That is deeply fulfilling for me, and deeply challenging, but deeply fulfilling. And the other one is nature, for me, always has been. You know, when I was young, when I drifted off into the woods, I would just get stuck with, this is the thing that I did, I would get stuck with a shaft of sunlight going through the leaves, or a ripple of water in a stream, and I would just get stuck there, and I would get stuck looking at it, and I would get enraptured by it for an hour or so, you know, when I had the time. You know, now I usually have to get back for something, but those experiences of being out in the wilderness or out in nature, those are some of my most precious experiences in life, I would say.
Amazing.
Yeah, and actually a third one, because I have to do three.
Three,
increasingly now is at night. Yeah, at night. The nights are very precious. When you're in a family and you have a busy life, the silence of night is just exquisite. You know, because you're alone again. Everything is, no one's going to disturb you. 2 o'clock in the morning, and you enter into this deep, beautiful meditation space. And you know, so I spend a lot of time at night awake, spontaneously, because I need that space, and I need that quiet and that darkness and that expansive space. And that's where out of that darkness comes the light that fuels me in the day. You know? So yeah, it's very precious times.
Well, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
Very nice to get to know a little bit more of yourself.
Yeah.
So, and thank you guys for watching. Thank you. Bye.